In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a 3D platformer in Gdevelop while having a mental breakdown trying to visually explain it. Let's get right into it. Now, before we get started, I want to say that this tutorial assumes that you have some knowledge of 3D, how to use 3D in Gdevelop, the Wit3.js extension in Gdevelop. So if you don't have any knowledge or you're completely new to this video, this topic, or this channel, I have two videos on how to use 3D in Gdevelop, and those can really help you out. Um, so you can learn the fundamentals, because this tutorial does assume that you know the fundamentals. And also, before we start, I want to give credit to the creator of this tutorial, which is Pandako, who also has a channel called Enjoy Making Games. You can subscribe there. And they also have an extension that you can download, and you can buy examples if you want to learn how to use it better. But he is the creator of the extension, and this extension is absolutely amazing. So please consider supporting them. Now, getting into the tutorial, like I said, once again, we're going to get started, and this tutorial does assume that you have some prior knowledge to using 3D in Gdevelop. So first of all, I'm going to run the game, and let's just see what we got right now. So, what we have, I have a basic like layout of a ground. I have a box. You can't see this on screen because I can't rotate my camera, but we can move up and down and left and right and all that other cool stuff. Now, what do we want to do? Before we even make jumping, we actually need to be able to see, of course, and I want to introduce a way of using the mouse that has not been seen in my previous videos. And one thing I do want to say that the code that's going to be used in this video is all Pandaco's code. I want you all to know this, but I'm just going to be explaining how to use some of Pandaco's code. I'm not going through all of his examples because that's why you should support him and buy that. But I'm just going to go over the 3D platform example because I believe that we should really know how to do this in Gdevelop. But I just want to say that the following code is Pandaco's. I do not take any credit for this code. Now, let's see what we want to do first. For us to get a good camera system, we want to go into our extensions. So we want to go to Project Manager, Extensions, create or search for a new extension. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into a pointer. I'm going to put pointer. And we see an extension called Mouse Pointer Lock. And actually, this extension is also made by Pandaco. And this is good for 3D, but it can also be used without 3D games. But we're going to be using his extension for the mouse pointer lock. Now that we have that extension installed inside of our project, we're going to go to the events, and I'm going to add a new event. And I'm going to actually right click this event and move it to a group so we can keep our project organized. I'm going to name this group camera. I'm going to name this camera. Now I'm going to expand this. And what do we want to do first? Now I'm going to show you how the code works. So I'm going to go add condition, and I'm going to go to other conditions, and we're going to scroll down until we find mouse pointer lock, and we're going to put if pointer is locked. But we want to invert this condition and put if pointer is not locked. If pointer is not locked, and now we're going to put if also that you don't have to put and, but you can just put I'm going to put go down into my mouse events and control flow, not events and control flow. I'm going to go down to mouse and touch, and I'm going to put if mouse button is pressed. So I'm going to put left. So if the left mouse button is pressed, so basically what we're saying, if the mouse button, if the mouse pointer is locked, is not locked, and the left button is pressed down, we want to do a certain thing. So I'm going to add action and put request pointer lock. So let me see this pointer lock and request pointer lock. And we won't be able to really see this in action. I'm going to preview. We won't be able to see it in action really too much yet. So, I can see nothing. We can't really do anything right now. So, but one thing we can test is if I press escape, because this is part of the extension normally, I can move my mouse around. So if I click into the scene, now my mouse is gone. And that's a good thing because we don't want our mouse cursor going outside of the window. But if I press escape, I can have my mouse cursor reappear and I can close out this tab. Now what else do we want to do? I'm going to add a new event. I'm going to right click and put add new event below. And I'm going to put add condition. And we're going to go into other conditions. Go down to the mouse pointer lock. And if the pointer is locked, we don't want to invert it this time. If It is locked. I'm going to press OK, and we're going to add condition. Change the scene variables. We're going to go into variables, scene variable, value of a scene variable, and I'm going to put mouse. Well, I forgot. We have to actually create a mouse movement Y variable so we can put this in here. Now, let's go create this new variable. I'm gonna put this here, and project manager. Probably me going a little bit slow. I'm trying to think and look at this. So project manager. I'm going to go to our untitled scene. Go into these little three little dots, and I'm gonna put edit scene variables. And now we're gonna add a new scene variable, and we're gonna call this variable mouse movement Y. And then we're gonna set this to mouse movement Y is going to be a number because it holds a numeric value, and it's gonna by default be 0. Now I'm going to go hit apply since we have that variable, and now we can actually get to coding. So add action, other actions, and variables, scene variable, and we're going to change the scene value of the scene variable. So mouse movement Y is the scene variable, and we want to set it equal to. So we're going to put equal, and here's the value that we want to be equal to. Mouse pointer lock. Now this is something that we can access only through this extension, and we're going to put movement Y. That's what we're going to put here. And I'm going to click OK. Now we won't be able to see anything yet, so I'm not going to even test it because there's no point. Now I'm going to add another action. I'm going to go to other actions with 3.js, and we're going to go into camera. Now we want to move 3D camera like head. So we want to put rotate 3D camera like head. We're going to put plus because we want to add values here. Now this is very important. This is going to look a little bit like backwards and inverse related, but for angle X right here, the parameters for angle X are going to be related to mouse pointer lock movement Y, and the ones for Y are going to be related to movement X. That's kind of just how this thing is. 3D and Gdevelop has a few weird properties when it comes to the X, Y, and Z coordinates. Of course, the fake Z coordinate. Now, I'm going to pay attention to this. It has to be 100% exact. So I'm going to put mouse pointer lock, and it's going to autocomplete. But instead of putting movement X, we want to make sure this is movement Y. And then we're going to multiply this by times delta. And technically you don't have to do this, but this is good practice because if we don't have it multiplied by time delta, if it's some other value that's hard set in code, depending on the frame rate, it'll move differently. Or if it skips a frame, it'll move differently. So this just ensures that the program works the same no matter what frame rate you're on. And I'm also going to multiply this. Well, I'm going to use an asterisk over the 8 symbol and multiply this by 40. And that is it for angle X. Now for Y, here's what we're going to put for Y. For Y, we're going to put mouse pointer lock, mouse pointer lock, movement X. Now we're going to put movement X, and this is also going to be multiplied by times delta, and multiplied, time delta. Make sure you put this, and then also multiply it by negative 40, because the negative 40, that's the value that controls really how fast or slow it moves. And for angle Z, we don't actually have a Z, so, well, it's really hard to display, but we're just going to put 0 here, because we don't want to add anything in terms of the so-called Z value, because that would be forward, not up and down. Now, we're going to actually preview this now, and let's see what happens. As you can see, we can, if I click into the, you have to click into the scene first to make sure. But first of all, you'll notice two things. First of all, the movement is off. I'm pressing forward right now and it's not moving forward. And I'm pressing back and it's not moving back. But another thing that's wrong is, well, you can see our camera looks fine for now. But if I look up and I keep looking up, I can turn all the way upside down. Now, how do we fix this? Now, Pandaco, he added something new to this extension so we could control the camera without using all sorts of other complicated objects and actions. It just makes it much easier. So I'm going to add actions, go to other actions, and with 3JS, we're going to go to 3D camera, and we're going to put correct 3D camera rotation within limits. Now note, this is experimental, so possibly you may run into some bugs, but from my own testing, I haven't ran into any bugs yet. Now, this is going to be very important because see, we have a lot of values here. So what do we want to do? So minimum angle of X, we want to make negative 89. This is important. We got to make sure all these values are good. So minimum angle of X, we want to make negative 89. And the maximum angle of X, we want to set to 89. That's kind of just the limits. And for minimum angle of Y, we want to set this to negative 180. And minimum angle, well, maximum angle of Y is 180. I think you can see the pattern. And the same thing for Z, minimum angle, negative 180, and maximum 180. And now, let's see what happens. I'm going to click preview, and I'm going to click into the scene and look up, and I see, no matter how much I try to go up, I cannot look all the way around here. I cannot look all the way and upside down. If I look down, I can't go any further than this. Of course, you can tweak these values a little bit if you want to set stricter limits or less strict limits, or no limits at all. You can just completely get rid of this, but normally games have limits. And the last thing we would do is want to fix this weird movement. Now, when it comes to 3D and Gdevelop, when you're unlinking the camera angles, movement does get a little wonky, so you have to make a correction for it. So I'm going to put this. I'm going to click into player, and I'm going to change the angle of the player. Let me see this right here. Let me change the angle. Go to angle, add a force angle. Change the angle of the player, and it's going to, well, we don't want to do it like this. We don't want to change it like this. I got a little bit messed up here. So I'm going to scroll down all the way to angle, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm going to set this equal to, and this is, we're going to access something within width3.js as extension. So we're going to put width3, because that's the name of the extension, JS. We're going to put 2 colons, and I'm going to put camera angle. It'll have caps lock, camera angle, and it's already going to autocomplete. I'm going to press tab, and now I'm going to put quotes and then put Y in between this. Make sure it's capitalized, and then minus 90. And as you can see, what this does, it kind of corrects it. And this is a little bit mathematical. It's really hard to explain what's going on, really, but it's just correcting the movement angles so we can actually have this done right. So as you can see, if I click into the scene and I move forward, I can move left, I can move right, and it actually correctly corresponds to what I'm actually doing inside the game. So this is all good. Now, let's get into the actual platformer part. Let's go, let's go, let's get it. Now, the platformer part, here is where things get a little bit complicated. We are going to have to do certain calculations based off a fake Z order of the player's head, a fake Z order of the player's feet, and even a fake Z order of this player's body. This is all because Gdevelop is a 2D engine at the end of the day, which means anything dealing with height going up, we have to fake it, like, because it's not actually 3D. So anything dealing with that is actually just an illusion. So we have to do a lot of calculations. Now, what are we going to do first? We're going to actually create 2 variables. One of them is going to be an object variable, and one of them is going to be a scene variable. So I'm going to double click into our player. I'm going to go into the variables tab, and I'm going to add variable. Now, the variable that we're going to add is this. This is going to be simply called jump. And jump is going to be represented as a number, and its default value will be 0. This doesn't really matter because it will be getting changed anyway. Now, what do we want to do next? The next thing we want to do is go to our project manager, go to scenes, edit scene variables, and add a variable, and we're going to call this collision. We're just going to call this collision complete, or yeah, collision complete. And now we're going to apply this, and we'll be, oh yeah, this will also be a boolean. This will be a boolean value that is normally set as false. That's very important. and we'll be using this to detect the collision of platforms or boxes, and basically both of them. Now let's get into the actual meat of things. I'm going to close this camera. I'm going to add a new event. We're going to move a little bit faster here. And I'm going to right click, move this into a group, and name this collision. Collision of planes. Because we're going to start with plane collision first. And one more thing we need to do before we go. We're going to create two object groups. Now my object group tab is down here. But if you don't know where it is, you can click into the 3 cubes up here. And this will open the groups panel. I'm going to add two groups of objects. One of them is going to be called planes. And the other group, I'm going to add another one. This is going to be called, let me see, boxes. And what's going to be inside the planes is floor. It's going to be inside that group. And inside the boxes group, we're going to have, of course, the box. And we are going to be using these later. This just makes the game flexible. So if you add any other objects, instead of hard coding them into the collision code, all you have to do is add them to the object groups, and you'll be able to access them through the code. Just by referencing that object group, it will reference all of them. So that's just making the code more flexible. Now, I'm going to go into the collision of planes, and let's start adding some code. Now, it's going to be a little bit hard to explain all of this, so try to follow on to the best of your ability because things get a little bit complicated here. Now, we want to do something that we usually don't use in Gdevelop, and we're going to add something in this tab right here, add, choose and add a new event, and I'm going to put repeat, oops, the wrong one, I should have never did that. Let me delete this. I'm going to click into it and put delete. But let's add something different for each object. And now this is the thing we want. So for each object, each instance, and now we can check. We want to click into choose. We want to click into where it says click to choose for which objects this event will be repeated. And we're gonna put planes for the starting. Now, of course, we could actually just use always, but that could lead to performance issues. We only let this code repeat for the object. So if the object is not on screen, it won't be running the code because it's not there. So this basically leads to better performance because it's not always running code unnecessarily. Now, we're going to put under this event, I'm going to delete this here. I'm going to put under this event, well, I got to actually make sure it's inside of it, make sure this is inside of it. Okay. Now, under this event is I'm going to add a new condition. And if player, I'm going to put player, and then I'm going to type here collision. If player is in collision with any part of planes, this is any part of the plane. So if it's in collision with any object in the planes group, we want to do a certain thing. Now we're not going to add in actions. We're going to actually use a sub event. So I'm going to right click into this event and put add sub event. This is not a regular event. It has to be a sub event or this code will not work. Now, we want to do something. This is where the use of the jump variable comes into play. Now, our jump variable will be changing a lot, like constantly during this program. So we don't have to worry about this value right now. I'll explain it later. But for now, you want to put this. Other conditions, variables, scene variable, not scene variables. I'm going to go to the player, go down to the player's variables, value of an object variable, and jump. Because we have to access it here or we won't be able to access it anywhere else. And I'm going to put if it's less than, you won't understand this yet because I haven't explained it, less than 0. And we want to add a few things under this. Now, I'm going to add one condition. We don't have to use the and condition. I'm going to go to other conditions, events and control flow, and compare two numbers. Now, the first expression, this is very important. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to put player dot z order and +8. Now, think about this for a second. The player z order is how high it is on this in the scene. So, player dot z order +8, it basically represents the head of the player because this is above the normal z order of the player, if you know what I mean. This represents the head of the player. Now, we're going to put if this is greater than, we're comparing two numbers, player.z order, player.z order minus 32. Well, I forgot, this is not the same one. My apologies. This has to be, something different. I just got a little bit confused here. Sorry for the confusion. So, if it is greater than planes, because that's the name of the group of our planes, planes dot z order. So if basically what I'm saying here, how do we actually express this? So if the head of the player dot z order plus 8, is greater than the z order of our plane, and currently the z order of our plane is 8, we want to do a certain action. We want to do a certain action. So I'm going to press OK. But we want to add one more thing as well, the handle the feet, because that only handles the head. We can't make collisions off of only a head. So I'm actually going to copy this little part of the event and paste it right here. Paste this condition. And I'm going to double click into it. Now, instead of player.z order plus 8, we're going to put player.z order minus 32. Now, if you can guess, this represents the feet of the player, or the invisible feet of the player. And I'm going to put less than, and I'm going to put planes.z order still. So basically what we're saying here, if the player's z order of his head is greater than the z order of the plane, and the z order of the player's feet is less than the z order of the planes, we want to do a certain thing. And what that thing is going to be is we want to keep the player on the ground. So I'm going to put add action here, and I'm going to go into player. I'm going to type in z order, type in here, and I'm going to set this equal to plane, let me see, planes dot z order plus 32. And just explain this code one more time. Basically what it's saying in English form, not code form, and hieroglyphic form, and you know. So what it's doing is, if the player's head is above the ground and the player's feet is below the ground, I have to check that first. If both of those are true, and the variable of jump, I'll get to that later, if it's less than 0, we want to make sure the player is always on the ground. So by the player's z order being set to planes.z order plus 32, it will always keep the player on ground level as long as these things are true. And then the next thing we want to do is go into our player, add another action here, player. I'm going to put variable, type variable, value of an object variable, jump. And we want to set jump equal to 0. And we're resetting that. I know you don't understand the jump yet, but I'm just going to put this here. And another thing we want to do is, let me see. We have to add a new sub-event, another. It has to be a sub-event of our sub-event. I know this is a little confusing, but you got to keep along with me here. I'm going to put right-click on here and add a sub-event. Now, I'm going to put, this is going to probably be the simplest part of this tutorial. I'm going to put other conditions. I'm going to put variables. Not variables. I'm going to get keyboard, space key pressed. I'm going to put if space key is pressed, whoops, do not invert this. Space key is pressed. And if space key is pressed, we want to change the variable of jump to be equal to 3. So I'm going to go into player. I'm going to type variable, value of an object variable, jump, and I want this to set equal to 3. Now, if I preview the scene, nothing will have changed at all. As you can see, absolutely nothing has changed. And that's because the player is actually not falling. The player has no gravity. So right now we're still floating. We're still floating. It looks like we're on the ground, but we're still floating right now. So I'm going to show you how to fall. So I'm going to go into our fall code. I'm going to go into our fall code. And let's go into add a new event. And then I'm going to put right click and move event into a group, move events into a group. Now what we want to do is this. We're going to call this group, and this is just for organization purposes, fall. Well, falling. We'll just call it falling. And I'm going to expand this and add a condition to this. Well, not actually add a condition, because for falling, we want the player to technically always be falling towards the ground, because gravity's always pushing on the player, if that makes sense. It's like real life, gravity's always pushing on us. So I'm going to change the variable. We're going to go into our actions, not conditions. And we're going to go into player, variable, and I'm going to set this value as jump. We're going to change the jump variable, and this is very important here. We want to actually subtract. We want to subtract the value of 4 times time delta. Now what this is actually doing here is just making our jump variable go down by a lot. And that's what gives us momentum while we're falling, because it keeps changing the jump variable by this decreasing amount of time since it's been elapsed. That controls our fall speed. I want you to know this. This number controls how fast we fall. The higher this is, the faster we fall. The lower this is, the slower we fall. And I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to put add action and change the, I'm going to click player, and I'm going to type Z order in here, and I'm going to change the Z order. Instead of making it equal, I'm going to put add, and it's going to be adding player dot variable. This stands for the object variable. Player dot variable jump. So what this is doing, the Z order of the player is always changing by the value of jump. So if jump is increasing, that makes us go higher. If jump is decreasing, like it naturally is, it makes us go lower. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense for you. So as long as jump is positive, we'll be going up, and if jump is negative, of course, we'll be going down. If it's 0, it won't move at all. Now, I'm going to run this. And this should work now. Let's see what's going on here. So it kind of looks like I'm above ground. I assure you I'm not above ground. That's kind of just how having a Z order this high. I'm going to press space, and let's see what happens. I jump up. This is magical. This is absolutely amazing. Now, I could call it quits right here, but we actually still have a lot more work to do. We have not covered ceilings yet, and we haven't even covered how to do boxes. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to make us collide with boxes? As you can see, if I jump on this, I'm still phasing through this box. I'm phasing through this box. But we don't have a roof to show, but actually I would clip through roofs as well. So let's bake something for this. Now, what do we want to do? Well, so this Pandaco's extension. Great extension, by the way. Now, how do we account for, you know, not roofs, blocks? Cool, we'll do roofs last, because it's really not necessary for this tutorial, but it's still important. But how do we account for collisions when it comes to objects like boxes? Okay, I got interrupted here, but I'm going to show you how to make these boxes collisions. Now, box collisions are much more complicated in nature, but in terms of the theory, it's still about the same. We just gotta add a few more things. Now, with player collision, we want to put repeat for each instance of boxes. This is the group boxes. And player, if player is in collision with the group boxes. Now, what do we want to do? Now, I made a variable called not variable. I made a variable called collision complete. This is a scene variable. So I'm going to go to the actions of this event, add actions, other actions. I'm going to go to variables, scene variables, value of scene variables, there's a lot of variables, and collision complete. And we want to set this, well, I forgot, this is a Boolean value of scene variable, and we're going to set it equal to false. So basically, if player is in with collision, oh my god, I'm tripping up on word. If player is in collision with a box, we want to set this variable equal to false. That means the collision has not been completed yet because we're in collision with something. I know this sounds really complicated, but it's really not that complicated. Now, I'm going to put a sub event to this top event here, not this one, this one. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to add a sub event. Now, what do we want to do here? We have a sub event. I'm going to drag it up here so we can see it. And we want to add a condition. Now, we're going to start with this condition called or, because these, not these, this will be set up by two conditions. This will be true if two things are true. If one of two things. So I'm going to put or, okay. And now, if one of these conditions, not both of them, but just if one of these conditions, and I'm going to put also, we need to put this as well to make sure, because like we can get, if we don't use this, it can lead to some bizarre glitches. And I know there's a lot of add sub condition things. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. And I'm going to put add condition under the and I'm going to put let me see, other conditions. I'm going to put events and control flow and compare two numbers. Whew! Now, this is going to be complicated. Very complicated. Like, very complicated. Now, don't get scared. We're about to replicate the collision of the center of the player's body. This will control, like, the sideways collisions. Not only that, like, just the collisions really in general of the center of the player's body, making sure things can't phase through it. Because since this is not a plane, we have to make sure things can't go through the player, because we're not only going to be on top and above it, we're going to actually have to make sure we can't go inside it. So what do we do for this? Now, for the player object, remember our player, imagine the player as a 32 by 32 cube, like a 3D cube, a 32 by 32 3D cube. Imagine the player like that. That means the middle of the player would be like downwards at negative 62. Not 62, negative 16, if you know what I mean. Like 32 minus 16 is 16. That would be the middle of it. Now, player, the first expression is going to be this. Player.z order, and then minus 16. Minus 16. And the thing that we want to compare it to, we want to make sure there's less than. And this basically player.z order minus 16, imagine this at the center of the player. And we want to check if this number is less than box group. This is going to be really complicated. Please don't lose me here. Please don't click off here. Box group dot z order. Oh my god, this is a lot. Box group dot z order plus, and we're going to put this in parentheses here, plus, because if not, we're going to run into some silly errors. Box group, this is going to be really complicated. Not box group. I'm not supposed to be putting box group because that's not the group of it. Sorry for the confusion. Boxes, because that's the name of our group, and boxes right here as well. And we're going to put boxes dot box projection from tiled. And this right here is accessing the behavior part of our boxes, which is the box projection from the tiled sprite. I'm going to press tab to autocomplete this. And now we want to we have a few functions here. I'm going to go to def and autocomplete this as well. And the def divided by 2. So, I'm going to put, it has to be def divided by 2. Now, I'm going to explain this really quick. So basically what this is saying, if the center of the player's body, if the z order of it is less than the middle of the boxes, because the depth of the boxes, remember, it is the player of it. Okay, that's a little bit hard to explain. Boxes.z order, the z order of our box is like gonna be 16 plus the division. Oh my god, that's so hard to explain. Uh, so if it's less than the top, if player dot z order, if the center of the player is less than the top of the box. That's what it's trying to say. I may be a little bit wrong here because it's kind of hard to represent this mathematically, well, visually. I'm just kind of stumbling over words a lot. But if the center of the player is less than the top of the box, then we have to do something. And I know you guys are very sad right now, but we have to add another one of these events. I'm going to copy this because it's very similar. Copy this and paste it under this add subcondition. You got to be careful. I'm going to double click into this. Now, player dot z order, we can keep this as minus 16, but we're also going to put if it's greater than instead of less than. And we're going to put if it's greater than box dot z order, but instead of plus, we're going to put the opposite, which is minus. So what this is saying is if the center of the player is greater than the bottom of the box. So what's this actually saying? If one of these conditions is true. So it's one of these conditions. If the center of the player is less than the top of the box, and if the center of the player is greater than the bottom of the box. It's if it's less than the top of the box and greater than the bottom of the box, we want to activate it. Or if the top of it is greater than the top of the box. You know what? Let me just show you in code, let me see this. Now, we want to go to, make sure don't add it under here. Do not add it under here. I'm going to actually copy and paste this right here. Copy, but I'm going to paste it in the add sub condition right here. Paste it. Here we go. I'm going to double click into the first one. Player.z order, I'm going to put if the player.z order plus 8. And remember, this represents the head of the player. Now, if this is greater than, and we're going to basically keep all this code, if this is greater than the top of the box, so if the head is greater than the top of the box, and for the second one, and I'm going to put if player.z order minus 32, which means the feet of the player, if this is less than the top of the box, less than the top of the box. So both of these have to be true in order for this to happen. And like I said, this is very hard to explain. Visually, I'm doing this the best I can. And that's basically how we added that over there. Now, we're not done here. I know we just did like a billion things, but we're not done here. Now, for the bottom of the player's feet, as well as, the top of his head, we want to make this for the bottom of the player. And I'm going to put, we have a sub condition right here that we already have. So we're going to keep this code right here. I'm going to add a new condition. And this is going to be if the Boolean value of collision complete is false. So we're going to go to scene variables, Boolean value, collision complete, false. But this is basically saying if the player is in collision with a box, or is jump, not or, and its jump is less than 0, and the player.z order is greater than that plane's.z. The thing that we explained earlier, the head and the feet. If all of this is true, we gotta change some things though, because I copy and pasted this from earlier. Now, if player.z order plus 8 is greater than, and we want to delete this, is greater than, let me see, Trying to remember all this code that we gotta write. So if it's greater than boxes dot z order, if it's greater than that, and boxes dot z order, not only this, if it's greater than boxes dot z order plus, we're gonna put parentheses, boxes dot box projection from tile sprite. Oops, I forgot the dot. Box projection from tile sprite, and I'm gonna put the depth divided by 2. So if it's greater than the middle of the box. If the head is greater than the middle of the box, I'm gonna copy this as well. Copy and delete this and paste it right here. And if it is player dot z order minus 32 is greater than, not greater than, less than, it's less than box dot z, the same thing. We don't have to even change this. And now we want to change the z order of the player to be a certain thing. Now, what do we need to change the z order of the player to? What do we need to do now? Now we need to set it equal to, instead of planes.z order plus 32, we need to put boxes.z order, and we want to put plus the middle of the box, which is, the middle of the box is boxes dot box projection from tile sprite, the depth of it, divided by 2, which is technically 16, and plus 32. And that's how we want to set it there. We set the variable of jump equal to 0, like it already is, and we want to set the Boolean value of collision resolved, Boolean value of collision resolved, or collision complete, whichever one, equal to true. And now this collision is done. And we gotta add one more thing. If space key is pressed, oh, actually this can stay. Thank God for that. We can stay with this actually. So I was just looking at the code. We can just change this. Now, let's see if we can collide with it. After all this work, I can jump. I can collide with the floor. Let's see if I can collide with this box. First of all, I'm gonna tap into it, and I kind of snap. That's kind of just a problem with Gdevelop's this thing. It's not perfect, like I said, experimental. But if I jump onto it, I can actually jump on the box, and that just like that, we've learned how to make some things with 3D and Gdevelop. This is absolutely amazing. Now, when I add you one more, I want to show you one more thing. First of all, I'm gonna put this box a little bit out of the ground, and I'm gonna put it at like Z order 16 or something, 16, and let's see what happens. But I'm gonna also do this. I'm gonna set floor. I'm gonna set this on the outside. This is important. There's some practice. I'm gonna try and make a platform just to show you how this works. I'm gonna set this platform to a Z order of 30. It's a big, decently sized platform. I'm gonna duplicate this and set this as to a 160. And let's see what's going on. I'm gonna look around here, and ooh, we got some platforms. Now we can jump. I can jump, take a leap of faith, jump over here. I can jump on this platform. Jump over here. I can jump at this platform. And just to show you, I can do the same thing with boxes. I can duplicate this box, and I can make these tiny platforms. I can set this at a Z order of 90. We're just moving in increments of 30. Z order of 90. And I can set the other one as a Z order of 120. So let me just click this, and we can set this as a Z order of 120 because also increment of 30. And look at this. Now I can go look around. I can crash into this box. A little bit of a glitch there with the snapping. We will definitely fix this in the next part of the tutorial. But we got a little bit of a problem there with just a small problem with snapping. And that's because we didn't finish a certain part of the collision. But we will be doing that next tutorial. But as you can see, we can jump onto platforms, and I can even jump onto boxes as well. Well, I just fell, but I'm just gonna show this one more time. We can jump onto platforms, and we can jump onto boxes, and this is all really good. And this is how you make a 3D platformer in Gdevelop. I know I was having a really hard time explaining some of this stuff. It's pretty complicated to explain in a visual format, but I hope you got something from this video. I hope you can use these to make some cool projects, test out things on your own, change the fall speed, change the jump speed, change the speed of the player. You can change momentum, really just experiment with this knowledge that you have here now and just go absolutely crazy with this knowledge. Once again, I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe to my channel, Q the Game Dev, as well as please subscribe to Pandaco's channel. He's the one who made this amazing extension, and this is where the code came from today. I'm just trying to explain it here. This is all Pandaco's code. So I want to thank you for watching, and we'll meet again in the next part or another one of my videos. Peace out.